Yeah, everything.
If you're in Canada and have over $10,000 of debt, payday loans, credit cards, or lines of credit that you can't pay off or get to zero, first of all, don't worry, you're not alone. And here's the good news, we can make the next year better for you. With
Yes. No, sir, I'm not Canada, me doing it, but much not keep a person. They don't really support Jamaican, not Yeah, where you go? You have a look woman a par with now? You have if I look woman now. Mm, that's right.
And I was in Medellin, but I was with my brothers, which are called sirs, patrones, gentlemen. They're not sicarios. These are gentlemen. This is Griselda Blanco's offspring. This is cartel royalty. And I wanted to meet my brother, and they wouldn't let me. My brother Chiqui's like, no, I want to go to my brother. He goes, are you crazy? That's beneath you. And I'm like, what do you mean it's beneath me? It's my bloodline. He goes, yeah, but he's Pablo Sicario, and mommy won't like that.
This is Inside the Life with Giovanni and Dutch, produced by the Mob Museum. Giovanni, Rocco, and Dutch McAlpin are former police and federal task force operatives. They infiltrated drug cartels, outlaw motorcycle groups, and the mafia. Now, they share their stories, along with others who have gone inside the life.
We're super excited today to bring on Michael Corleone Blanco, son of Griselda Blanco. To hear Michael's words and him describe his life with his mother, him being born into that era of the cartels. I mean, he talks about so many violent things that happened to him. But then the good thing is he also talks about how he's changed his life, how he's doesn't want to sensationalize or glamorize the life of crime or the life of being in a mafioso or being in a cartel group. He's here to promote his book as well, My Mother, the Godmother. We hope you enjoyed this episode with Michael Corleone Blanco. You came in, we're at the Mob Museum. You said you're fascinated by this. It is humbling to sit here, isn't it?
It's like so surreal to me. Like I was telling my wife, when my mentor is one gentleman that probably invented the criminal novels as we know it, or perfected them, Nicholas Pileggi. And he told me one time, kid, you could do this. And during the death of my mother, he was a counsel to me. And I had already started writing. When I was a kid, I would gather the information and stories from everybody from our cartel, I hate to say it, but it's the truth, from the Blanco cartel and affiliated cartel members of the Medellin drug cartel. And I would break down every story. And they'd be like, kid, what are you gonna do, make a movie? And I remember at 7 years old being like, yes. And then they'd be like, all right, so come on. So let me tell you this story. And it's so surreal to be here because, like I told you, Nicholas Pileggi, when you see Casino, when you see Goodfellas, then I did my homework about the Mob Museum, knowing that it was a federal building, knowing what Goodman did for the city, right. And you gentlemen, like, this is a hub, and I get chills because it's like, okay, well, it's dedicated to criminals and law enforcement, but it's deeper than that. It's dedicated to historical facts.
Mm-hmm.
Us Colombians, I got a lot of backlash when I first used to start storytelling, becoming a raconteur, because I used to glorify criminal life. I was a young kid and I was still a criminal. You know, I only dreamt with exiting, exit stage left. I didn't know how to make legal money. When I cashed my first corporate check for, I call this criminal consultation, technical consultation,
Yeah.
I was like, wait, how much did I just make? And it wasn't that much, but it was the fact that it was legal tender in the United States of America. And I was like, is this my first legal dollar?
Mm-hmm.
And it blew my mind. So to be in this building is remarkable. It's like I'm living in the Matrix.
Yeah. And as a kid, you were born into that life.
Yes.
That life, not the life you're in now. The place you are now is completely different. We'll get to that in a minute, but you were born into that life back then.
Yes.
So that's all you knew. And to be sitting here where you are now, hearing you say those words, that's a testimony that so many young people need to hear today.
I think you just described what we're trying to do on the show, and that's like, just tell the story. You know what I mean? Like you said, two different sides, two different perspectives, but they really happened. I mean, this is a place to document your life, our lives, walking sometimes side by side, propensities for violence and things that happen to you and how they shape us and what we become.
Yeah, and I guess at our age, wisdom is such a factor because we're still here every day above ground's a great day. And then you start to understand, okay, what's the meaning of past, present, and future, and what's the meaning of my life? I was raised by a minister in California, a white gentleman, Pastor Danny Everhart. He passed away 2 years ago. We buried him in Central Valley, California, and he always taught me, listen, you're not governed by the sins of your family. You're not governed by what you know.
When you're told by your mentors when you're young, I remember those days. I wrote about it, and I said, you don't listen when you're a kid. You can be so much more Giovanni. You can be so much more Michael. You can be so much more Dutch. No, when you're in it, you don't want to hear that. You think you're glorifying that life. Where are you today? I'd like to start where you're at right now in your life. What are you doing?
I've been called a lot of things in my life, and I repeat this a lot, and I said it in my book. The best thing, besides what every person has called me when I was a criminal or now that I'm not, you call me what you want. The best thing I've been called in my life, and they call me that every day, is Papi, father. I'm a suburban father, right? Yes, name it, network television, VH1. I'm an author, but when I look into the eyes of those 3 kids, it's just like, okay, I'm still alive. I'm not gonna die. I'm gonna multiply for these seeds. I have my beautiful wife that she is like she's a female version of me, I guess you could say. And since we have such a related story, we grew up with the Miami type of lifestyle, that you get to understand the psyche of men and savages. So when I was still am a professional MMA coach and Muay Thai coach, I'm a striking coach. I learned how to get into the psyche of my fighters like that, and they're all different. And then I remember one of my mentors in the fight game, her business, would tell me, "You're a fucking awesome coach." Sorry for cursing. You're coach. How do you do that? I'm like, snap out of it. And then you got to turn on slowly, and you got to understand how to guide them. Like, how do you do that? And I'm like, I'm gonna explain to you, gentlemen, one thing. As a coach beginning the business, I was turned on by the adrenaline rush so much because I couldn't relate any other adrenaline rush to close that cage, fight or flee, to how when I was selling dope and robbing drug dealers. Because I was like, I don't want to say it, but when I was there, when my people and their back on my back, it was like Marines. If we do or we die, we're dying. Come on, that money, gentlemen, we're here. And I never had that thrill or that adrenaline until I got into MMA.
Yeah.
Until I got into Muay Thai, and then I started understanding, okay, there's other things that can give me this adrenaline rush. And then I kind of started snapping out of, okay, I don't need my fix today picking up 100 kilos. I don't need my fix today robbing that guy that thinks he's a capo.
Right.
And I found it, and then these kids, I started seeing me and these kids that I was training, the youth in Miami. Me and my friend Levo Martinez, he was the backyard king of Miami, 100 undefeated fights. And in Miami, you have that culture. You have that Latin American culture that is like, okay, we're not going out without a fight.
It's something you do now with the fighting, but do you think, because we talk about that, Dutch and I have talked about on a show and independently, the adrenaline. We have that same addiction for adrenaline. That's why we did the work we did, right? We could have just been law enforcement, but no, the addiction is what drove our training. Do you think that your experiences as a child, that survival instinct, the way you read people, like you said, the way you talked to guys and said, hey, tell me your story, you know, as a little kid, and you wanted to know so much more. Because I remember I grew up in a violent environment, right? Not as violent as the things you used to as a young kid. But you learn to walk on eggshells with them, you know, and that's that balance. Like you described it perfectly. One fighter needs to be in your face, you know, go in that cage, get him, and the other one needs to be a little pampered, right?
Yeah.
That's the world we lived in. You know, sometimes it's extreme violence, sometimes it's just. Do you think that's because of your childhood and what you were born into?
That's a great question. Do I think it's because of my childhood? 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The survival.
And you know what? Genetics plays a crazy key in this because my brother Dixon, El Negro, he was really born into it. You know, my brother, if you read my first book, which is My Mother the Godmother, I speak a lot about his mentoring as becoming a bandit, a bandido. And he always taught me, a man goes where he wants, a man does what he wants when he wants. And I guess he's the one that really taught me about that. Like, okay, look, this is what you're supposed to do, this is what you can do, but you're gonna have to do it. Figure it out. And I'm gonna help you, I'm gonna guide you. But he's the one that really put it in perspective. And he taught me, it's a monarchy, but if you keep on believing it's a monarchy, it's gonna corrupt you. And I used to be like, bro, listen to me. He goes, no, you're gonna move to the States, you're gonna buy a home, you're gonna get your family, and you are gonna graduate and be the first one to put the face for the family. And then I guess after my brother Cheeky was assassinated, or even before that, I remember being in Medellin with my brother Cheeky. And to answer your question, what are you gonna do with your life? You know, you're training boxing with world champions today. You know, you don't need anything. You're gonna go to college. Do you want a car? You want a 64 Impala when you turn 15? I'll buy it for you right now. I want straight A's. I want a 4.0, which I had up till 11th grade. My dream was to go to Yale to major in history. And I had a teacher that she was mentoring me, guiding me. But now I'm in Medellin visiting my brother Cheeky, and as he overlooks the whole city of Medellin, you know, from our building, you can see La Catedral in the distance with the binoculars, and you can see the whole city of Medellin. And I remember him, and it's a little sad because I had the sweatsuit that he wore that night. It was a purple Christian Dior sweatsuit. He was, at the time, he had just came home from doing 7. He was 25 years old. And he goes, so what are you gonna do with your life? And I'm looking at him overlooking the whole city of Medellin. We're in a freaking $20 million penthouse. You know, our enemies are in the first floor. We're in the top floor. And he's basically, at the time, 1991, he was becoming the next Pablo Escobar. And Pablo had already given him permission, you know. And
how old are you at this time, Michael?
well, turning 13.
Okay.
And
Big influence right now.
Yeah, you know, big influence. And he was I idolized my brother Cheeky. My brother Dixon was my father. My brother Cheeky was my capo dream. One day I'm gonna be you.
Right.
So when I told him right then and there, I go, I'm gonna be a capo just like you and my mom. I've already had this conversation with mom. And he's like, what? He goes, no, you're not, bro. You're gonna go to Yale. You're gonna learn to do something different. Or what else? And I go, movies, acting. I go, when we write the story about our family, he goes, that's never gonna happen, kid. And I'm like, yes, it is. Tell me more stories. And he's like, nah, you're not gonna do that. You're gonna do this, and that. And I'm like, no, I wanna be like you. I had never seen that. My brother was such a savage. At the age of 18, as he turned 19, he was the 3rd largest cocaine distributor in the world. My brother Cheeky Blanco was known as the Prince of Cocaine.
Right.
You know, they said the worst thing the United States government ever did was put Rayful Edmond and Cheeky Blanco in the same cell.
Really? Made the connection, huh?
Oh, wait.
Were you seeing this stuff firsthand happening? Like, he's this huge
It was when I
national
was a
cocaine
child.
dealer. Yeah.
Yeah, no, as a child, when I wrote about it in my book, when my mother basically gives him, you know, the family. He was 17, he had just turned 17, and he already had his own routes. At the age of 15, my brother Dixon gives him 100 kilos of Medellin and says, he goes, there they are in the warehouse, what are you gonna do? And he goes, I already got the transport. And they're like, okay, then what are you gonna do? He goes, I'm gonna sell them. And my brother Cheeky, he had just turned 16 years old. And my brother's like, okay, no, who are you gonna sell it to in Miami? He goes, no, motherfucker, I'm jumping on the plane. When it gets there, I'm picking it up, and I already got the 100 sold. And my brother was like, no, you don't. He's like, I'll be back tomorrow.
Let's talk about, most people don't understand the value of 100 kilos of cocaine. You know
In
what I mean?
1982.
We're taking it for granted. Like,
Yeah.
oh, just 100 kilos is 17. This is crazy. Like, how much money are we talking here?
Oh,
Millions.
millions. A kilo was going for 55, even 60 at the time.
And he wrote it over and then sold it.
No. My brother Dixon supplied it in Medellin. You know,
Uh-huh.
came from. But at the time, my mother basically invented the first cocaine kitchens ever. So they were invented in Medellin, Colombia. And her plugs were the Peruvians and Bolivians, like they say, he's basically Sosa from Scarface. And he was my mother's plug in Bolivia. And then with the Peruvians, she met in New York. So now they got all this cocaine. But a lot of people don't understand that the first crack epidemic, base epidemic, happened in Medellin, Colombia. And it was my mother and my father, because a lot of people didn't do what? Crystallized cocaine. It was all base cocaine. And it was brought into the city, and then my mother let it run rampant.
Okay.
So the elite of Medellin and all the real estate czars were smoking base, pure base, like they did in Peru.
Right.
So then they started running out of assets. And then they would have to sign their assets over to the OG, because it was like, okay, now you can't pay me this little 10 grand. Back then, 10 grand was like 200,000 in Colombia.
Right.
So here you go. There's the house. And it was just, I guess the stories that they would tell were a little, I want to say amazing, you know, and in this weird way. So I idolized this young man, and then just like him, it was all three of them. The Dorizo brothers, my brothers, were the third largest cocaine distributors in the world. Chiqui being the main one. But who was his mentor? My brother Dixon. When he's telling me, you're gonna change your life one day, this, and that. And I'm like, you guys didn't. Well, why am I gonna change my life? And he goes, okay, hold up, let me cut you off right there. He goes, you see all this? He goes, yeah. He goes, you're gonna have this, but you're gonna have to have it legally in the United States. You're gonna, do your thing. Do you really want to do this? And I'm like, yeah, I really want to do it. He goes, okay, so you're set. You want to be like Chiqui. You want to be a couple. He goes, okay, tomorrow you suck. And living those years with that man, he taught me, my wife always makes fun of me. You're so freaking intense. You're always this. And I'm like, on the go. We got 3.2 seconds, this and this. Be on your P's and Q's. Be on your 6. Clear that corner. Look 6 cars back. They're not fucking with me today. My armed guards, they're like, yo, you really don't need us. I'm like, oh, you think you train tactical? Yeah, I grew up in Medellin, Colombia.
Been training your whole life.
Different.
Right.
Yeah, military training since I was a kid. I'm loading from the hip.
Yeah.
But more than that, I do not trust my shadow. My brother Dixon goes to me, just know that you're in for something now, because this life, you're going to end up hating it.
Yeah.
And then, 30 years later, I hated the life.
So your mom was on the run in 75, right? She was a fugitive by then.
Yeah, Operation Banshee.
And then you were born in 78.
Medellin, Colombia.
What's your earliest, what do you remember, not your earliest memory, but when did you realize the life that you were living is not what everybody else in Medellin is living? Like, my family's different. My mom is different, my respect, my brothers and all this. Okay, now I see it. What's your earliest memory of the business that your family's in?
Okay, earliest memory, because I wrote about this a lot, because so many different segments, my story to this day transcends 4 decades, basically, right? 40 years. I guess my earliest memory of knowing, my mother had a mansion in Medellin, and the Colombian supermarket chain is called El Éxito. In order for them to build their biggest store in Medellin, they had to buy my mom's mansion. My mom and her partner, El Capitan, basically were looked at by law enforcement and society, like every civilian, as real estate czars, because there wasn't any drug traffickers. People didn't know what a route was. There was no routes. They invented the routes. El Capitan, the captain, which was ex-military, and my mother invented the routes from the Bahamas, island hopping, and then to Mexico. And then Gacha took it over, and that's why they call Gacha El Mexicano, because of his tie. But he wasn't Mexican, he was Colombian, but his persona was that of a Mexican couple. So then he invented the modern routes to California and crossing the border of Laredo and everything with everybody. So when you see those old pictures of Chapo with Pablo and all that, it was probably because of Gacha, because he was El Mexicano.
Okay.
But they at the time that before Operation Banshees, let's say late 60s, early 70s, it's marijuana, and they're trying to put this thing together, and I guess you would say when I'm born, you know, they're already thinking the business, capos. I think their cat was out the bag. And everybody already knew after a couple of years, wait, that's the Madrina. That's the one that has everything, because we had the first American trucks. We had the first motorcycles. We had a Porsche in Medellin. My mother had the first limo. My father had the first 1000 Yamaha in Medellin. And my brothers were the sons of Rockefeller in Medellin. I come in 10 years after my brother Chiqui is born. So I'm the baby of the family. So I come in to the life, and I guess my first memory of wealth, I want to say is moving from that house in El Éxito, because they have to buy it. So I see the house for a couple of days, and then within 24 to 48 hours, now we're in another mansion in La Nutiara, and it's like, okay, we got a lot of money. The motion is what brought me aware of my family's life. The motion of 100 freaking bodyguards and law enforcement bodyguarding us. Because my mother, you know, most of her, she was such a real estate czar. She ran Medellin so much that it'd be 20 bandidos, 20 bandits, and 50 cops were our bodyguards. So when we would go to La Plaza de los Toros, that I'm writing about it in my second book, which is part 2 to my current book. And I would understand, like, okay, why is there 50, 60 people around us? Okay, mommy, I have to go to the bathroom. Okay, Dixon, he's going to the bathroom. Yeah, come on, little brother, come on. He's my father. My brother was like my father to me. And why am I going to the bathroom with 10 cops, 10 bandits, and my brother? But to answer your question, 1984, Never Ending Story comes out. I think it was 84, 83. I'm not sure. To this day, I cry about it. And we crossed Biscayne, the Record Causeway in Miami. We crossed the Biscayne Bridge in a fleet, white limousine, 2 Land Cruisers and motorcycles. And I would always remember the roar of the motorcycles. Like, oh yeah, that's my brother's hitters. That's my brother's hitman. But being part of this family, you're a child, you still don't comprehend. It's the family business. So I'm a child living in a mobster lifestyle, a cartel lifestyle. I don't know what's right or wrong.
Right.
Everybody lives on Palm Island in fucking mansions, and everybody's got bodyguards. And why is everybody like you ever saw that scene in Scarface when Manny tells him, "We're not the only dopers on the block"? I did not understand that.
You didn't feel any fear or anything at that time? Like, did it start to settle in on you, or like, man, something?
No. The state of emergency always was there, to answer your question, Doug, because why do I have so many bodyguards? And why these huge guns and big guns? And then they were wild bandits. So they'll kill somebody by accident. They'll let out rounds by accident. You're suspect, let's kill him. We don't have to deal with him. He looks like he's gonna kidnap Michael. Boom, boom, boom.
Right.
So,
that's intense.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds fun to live in the big lavish life, but also when you recognize as a young child you're surrounded by violent people, you can feel it, right?
Okay, you can feel the evilness and the state of emergency and the fear.
Right.
But you don't know as a child growing up that, and it's crazy because my brother would tell me, bro, we robbed you of your innocence when you were too little. Because I would say grown things, and they'd be like, why would you? I'm like, I mean, you should do this. And they're like, damn, you're a little savage. You shouldn't think like that. And I'm like, I learned it from watching you.
Yeah.
When did I know? I want to say the Never Ending Story in 1980, you know, in the early 80s, because I understood. And now my mother just crossed this causeway with a platoon of fucking bandits and killers, you know, the original code, the pistoleros. The pistolero gang, which my father basically invented in Medellin, and then they crossed over, is what is documented as the first cocaine cowboys. Los Pistoleros, Griselda's Pistoleros, ex-military bandits, my bodyguard, Chirusa, Guillermo Velasquez, he comes out in Cocaine Cowboys. I remember being with him in another decade, and he could hit an egg with a Pietro Beretta. And that shit would blow my mind. My mother groomed him, got him out the military, paratrooper, and brought him to the States. That night in Biscayne, when we're sitting, and the whole theater is empty, but we got 20 people with me. It's all my brothers, it's my mommy, and it's my nanny. And I look around and I'm like, okay, Chirusa, okay, this guy, my brothers, we can't be in limos yet. Where's everybody else? Wait, there's nobody in this theater. And that theater was in the Omni Mall. Ribby speaks about it a lot, that he was gonna do a hit in there one time, that Bravo had cornered him. But it's bought out. My mother bought it out for us. Right. So security got there before us, and then we walked in with the fucking freaking 100 bodyguards, but the theater's empty, and it was because she said, baby, what do you want to do today? And I'm like, I want to see the never-ending story.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
You
guess
watch it by yourself almost.
Yeah.
Surrounded by people, but not really.
Yeah, that was the day that I understood, okay, yeah, I get it. I know that we're bad good guys, but I know she's powerful. Further than that, Giovanni, to answer your question, the day my father killed a gentleman in the house and set him on fire was the day that the fear came into my life. And not fear because I hadn't seen violence before at that age. I'm 5 years old at that age, and I had already seen extreme violence. But because I felt guilt, fear at the same time, because I think it was my fault that my father killed the gentleman because I grabbed his wife's buttocks in the party downstairs. And he said, this little son of a bitch, and the music turned off and everything froze. And then they took him outside as they ushered me upstairs, and I heard everything. And then the heat from the fire, I could feel it in the house.
Yeah.
And then the screaming of everything. And that's the day that I'm okay. Why did this thing just happen? Oh my God, my papi, my daddy that babies me, that, you know what? He really is a monster. He really is a savage, and my hair sticks up thinking about it. Because that day I knew that man was a savage, but that he loved me so much that he was willing to kill somebody like that.
Right.
If they disrespected me.
And in that chaos, it sounds to me like your mom and your brothers, they wanted that better life for you, right? And again, I'm very familiar with the Colombian culture. They were proud people, but at that time, to paint the picture, you're young, it's the 80s. That's all it was in Colombia. That's how they made money, right? So it's expected of you everybody was kind of making money that way, right? You're born into that life, not at the level you're at. But your brothers and your mother were trying to shield you the best they could. It sounds to me like while you're living in this chaos and while they're living this crazy life of murder and mayhem, they're trying to give you normalcy,
You know why I respect the Italian culture so much, or the American Cosa Nostra? Because wife and kids, they're not permitted. Don't hit the family, this, that. That shit doesn't exist.
Yet at that exact moment,
Yeah.
you just watched a man killed and burned, and you said, I felt fear and I felt guilt fear.
Yeah.
It's like you probably felt like I made this man die. That had to be heavy.
Yes.
But was that a difference between your mom and your dad? The fact that your dad was willing to create that kind of environment for you and let you witness that, did he shield you as much as your mom and your brothers did, or he was kind of like, well, this is what we are?
You know what? The narrative that is thrown out there is like that, but I believe they both were guilty of robbing me of that innocence. My mother would try to shield me more than my father. When you see all this, public record or urban myths, and it was like, no, your dad was. I'm like, no, my dad was an assassin. He was the biggest bank robber in Colombia history. He robbed the national banks. And he didn't walk into that bank saying, hey guys, please give me the key. No, boom, boom, boom. Listen, you just saw that? Yeah, open the safe, because I'm going to kill you too if you don't. So I understood that my father was a savage. My father and my uncles were so tough, such bandits that they invented the violence after the violence of Colombia, the era that we live, which is called La Violencia, the political unrest in Medellin, that political parties would kill each other in the streets, communists and the not communists, they would fight and kill each other. So in the sector that my father and my uncles were from, Pereira, I say this a lot, but it's not, it doesn't mean it word for word, but they're known to kill and eat from the dead. Matan y comen del muerto, like savages, because of the violence that they've seen. So I don't want to say that if one's tried to shield me more than the other, because it took me so much to understand that even though my mother would sugarcoat it, and my brothers, like you said, to answer your question, you're like, no, we don't want you in the lifestyle. Yeah, but Michael, this is a 45, aim down so it doesn't ricochet, and wherever you bring that puppy out, you bring it hot. I used to be like, oh, this guy's a savage. That was my brother Cheeky. My father had just died. I remember looking through a catalog. My cousin Junior Blanco, his family is the Nika side. So now you know where I'm going with this, with the Nikas and the Iran-Contra and everything. So all our military hardware was bought from Nicaragua.
Okay.
So I remember after my father being assassinated, and I'm gonna bring this full circle on a positive note at the end, Giovanni. And being at the engagement party that my brother Cheeky was marrying, getting engaged to the Queen of Cocaine of San Francisco, a lady, it's documented her as well. Her name was Vicky. She was the cocaine plug of the Bay Area. 30-plus-year-old lady falls in love with a 17-year-old boy, which is known as the Prince of Cocaine, my brother Cheeky, right? So now she's plugged on it. Now it went from 20, 50 to 200, 300 every 15 days. And in the 80s, that was something different. It's still alive, yeah. So he had Tito Puentes come and perform for that engagement. And I remember seeing Tito Puentes, and I'm like, it's the guy with the Cuban lady Celia Cruz. And wait, that's the one that my mom watches on TV every day. And I remember seeing the party and the catering and all these bosses in their suits and their limos outside. And I'm like, wow, this kid is something different. And then I remember him going through the magazine. I'm like, what you looking? He goes, you want to see this? He goes, yeah. He goes, look, boom. And it was a military catalog because he was already planning to break out my uncle from the federal building in New York.
He's like shopping for military equipment?
Bulletproof helicopter to be able to get him off the top floor.
In New York.
In New York, quick fun fact. I think Sammy the Bull spoke about it. But my uncle later on tries to escape from there with the sheets. 9 floors, and they fall, and he kills a Gambino member. His best buddy in the cell.
He killed him on purpose? Or?
No, they fell. The sheets broke 9 floors up, 9 floors out. So he falls first, and my uncle fell on him, killed him by accident. This is his buddy from one of the mob families of New York, Gotti's family, basically. Yeah. Kills him by accident, then he's paralyzed, but he's not fully paralyzed, so he's faking that he's paralyzed so he can get to a medical facility to escape.
Okay.
It was the military thing, and I'm like, my brother's 17, 18 years old, and now he's the boss of this. And then, fun fact, completely not off topic, but at the wedding with my wife, I'm on VH1, and I'm like, living this matrix, and even this moment right here, very surreal for me. Like I told you, you gentlemen probably, you understand the psyche of most crime families. There is no legal money. Now people launder money and they have corporations and they're on the Forbes list and cartel money, buying this, buying that, land, artwork. How do you launder money? Back in those days, who gives a fuck?
Mm-hmm.
Got 100 million on the ground. Yeah, cash, everything, gold, cocaine. Here, trade a body for a few. That's a couple bodies. Mm-hmm. And I used to be like, how is this young man doing it? And that really blew my mind at the end of the day. And then I get back and I'm like, I made 3 money.